Hello, everybody, and welcome to Ask the Expert, where we're going to be able to ask a lot of questions here to a great group of experts we've aligned here after the Risk Management Hero session that you may have just seen, or the one you maybe saw that was run earlier today. Just for a little bit of information about how this generally will run. We have an open area here for going through and asking questions, so please give us, I know we don't have a tremendously large room, so think of us as kind of a small community. Definitely ask a lot of questions via chat, and we'd love to go through and directly address everything that comes up. We'll also go through and bring up some questions that came up earlier today as well that we think that might be interesting things for you to hear about. Just so you know, from an etiquette perspective, please be on your best behavior. Don't do anything like spam or put real inappropriate comments in the chat. I know we have some ability to remove you if you're especially bad, but this really doesn't ever happen. And follow our code of conduct. Our code of conduct rules are right here. You can certainly read through these, but just make sure that you use your best behavior while you're out here. So not to spend too much time, I want to make sure that you have as much time to go through and ask and go through these questions. My name is Kevin Kirkpatrick. I will be your moderator today. I work on compliance readiness, so making a lot of things like Microsoft Learning Paths and all focused on compliance. We're going to go through and talk through our introduce you to our experts here from left to right.
Hi, this is Hanamura from Japan. I'm doing security advisor in security solutions area. Nice meeting you. Tina?
Hello. Yeah, thank you. So my name is Tina Ying. I'm a senior product marketing manager working in the Microsoft 365 compliance team, specializing in information governance and records management. And Andrew.
G'day everyone, my name's Andrew. Everyone calls me Macca. Please don't call me Andrew, that usually means you're angry with me. I am part of the Microsoft Information Protection and Compliance Customer Experience Engineering team, specializing on Microsoft Information Protection.
And Matt.
Hello, everybody. I'm Matt Littleton. I am an advanced compliance specialist in our worldwide commercial business. So I am focused across all of our compliance offerings. Based in Washington, D.C., thrilled to be with you and looking forward to a great discussion.
And so let's start off here and talk through about Microsoft Information Protection. One thing we have heard is customers really have a difficult time sometimes thinking about how they even get started on this journey. It's kind of a daunting area. Matt, do you think you could start by talking to about how people should start to tackle feature implementation?
Sure. Be happy to take a quick kind of overview on that, and then we'll actually kind of partner up with Andrew and others to talk through on some of this. The big thing that we've got, is as laid out in the session that you just saw, is a roadmap to actually walk all the way through from a know your data, actually then getting into protecting your data, and then executing on DLP actions, and then really working through all of the different governance actions there. So that, to your point, can be really difficult to kind of figure all of that stuff out. To that end, we've put together a variety of different guidance. I mean, and actually Andrew's team is part of the folks that have actually done that in terms of how you actually start to step through some of these processes and some of the best practices on getting started. So Andrew, if you want to kind of talk about some of those resources, it'd be great.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So when it comes to deploying the information protection and compliance stuff, we have what's called a deployment accelerator guide, which you can get to by going to aka.ms/MIPC/DAG for deployment accelerator guide. And that gives you a nice, well-rounded view of the types of things you need to be thinking about when you're pushing out information protection and compliance. But So just to sort of drill down maybe into Microsoft Information Protection as an example, generally speaking, what we do is we think about deploying MIP as a crawl, walk, run style of deployment. MIP is a very big suite of capabilities across a number of different workloads. So the idea of going in there and implementing everything on day one is practically impossible. So when we think about it, our crawl phase is all around getting our classification journey started and starting really simple. So the sorts of things we think about are discovering the data that's out there, utilizing the AIP scanner or maybe the data classification portal inside the Security and Compliance Center, designing your first set of classification labels, so getting an understanding of what are the 3 to 4 to 5 most broadly applicable security descriptors for the type of data inside your environment. And then once you've got those in place, getting your users to manually label stuff, getting them used to the idea of what classification and labeling is, and potentially also using default labeling in their policies so that they don't have to think too hard when they're actually working with their documents in their email. And then when people have gotten the hang of that, we start moving into more of the walk phase. So we start introducing more capabilities. You may look at your most sensitive label. You might say to yourself, hey, highly confidential stuff should be encrypted. And you might introduce an encryption template that locks that down so that people within your organization can work with that data. And if it does escape, no one else can play with it. You might think about turning on recommendations for labels. So if I see, for instance, a credit card number or a medical number or something in an environment that is considered very sensitive for our organization, then recommend to the user with a tooltip to say, hey, you should go and label this accordingly. Maybe your AIP scanner should start actually labeling stuff on premises. Maybe you might want to think about using Microsoft Cloud App Security to perform some automatic labeling functionality or even blocking downloads. And then once you've done that sort of stuff, you get more into the run phase where you start getting really advanced in what you're doing. So you might actually do auto labeling rather than just recommending. You might also look at the way you've designed your key management strategy for the different encryption capabilities, thinking about, are you potentially going to move from a Microsoft managed key to a bring your own key style scenario if that's something that's important to you. So there's a lot of things that you need to think about, and we believe that deployment acceleration guide is a really good place to start.
Great, that's awesome. Tina, we have a lot of customers here that have adopted Teams especially after in our current reality, right? After COVID, Teams use has really exploded. A lot of customers are asking us, what about retention of Teams meetings? Is there anything here that you can talk about in terms of when we actually have meeting recordings, we can actually apply retention in that kind of situation?
Yes, thank you, Kevin. That's a really good question. So today we actually just announced that we are going to support the retention policy for Teams meeting recording. So I will share with you the supporting document just in a few minutes. And then, so one of the big updates for Teams meeting recording is that we are going to change the storage of Teams meeting recording, move it to OneDrive or SharePoint Online. The change will happen in the next 1 to 2 months. Once the storage change happens, you will be able to apply retention policy on the Teams meeting recording files. So it depends on who recorded the meetings and how the meeting is set up. If a meeting is set up by individual, then the meeting recording will be saved in the OneDrive of the person who recorded the session. And then you will be able to apply the retention policy for that OneDrive account. And if you want to single out the retention, you want to single out the meeting recording for retention policy, we will also support you by giving you some instruction on what kind of keywords query language that you can set up. So you can just auto apply policies specifically for Teams meeting recording moving forward once the storage change happens. So I will post the instruction in the announcement here so that you can see how you can auto apply retention label for Teams meeting recording.
And Kevin, before we jump off of that, I think that's a really important announcement that we just made there. I mean, what Tina's talking about, and I think this is kind of the sleeper hit for me on some of this. The fact that we're actually moving that recording into SharePoint opens up an enormous amount of compliance capabilities on top of those Teams meetings recordings. Not only the retention policies that we just talked about, but that actually now allows us to start to bring everything else to bear on top of those. That's been a big ask from customers. So I'm really happy that we've undertaken that decision. So it's an important change for us.
Absolutely, and we really love to see, and really the benefits of us bringing together compliance and having a centralized compliance center is us being able to apply these same policies and getting the best of each of our products that have done this in the past, like Exchange Online and with SharePoint Online, being able to retain documents, delete documents, and apply many other many other compliance capabilities. Hanamura-san,
yeah.
Essentially, since COVID happened, we've had a lot of people working from home, and a lot of companies need to quickly adopt in this new reality. Can you tell us a little bit about how the security compliance landscape has changed post-COVID and what our approach to it is?
Yeah, so like lockdown, work from home, not every company is prepared very well. So some company actually allow all of a sudden, okay, use their own PC at home. So that kind of thing it happens. So preparation is really key. But like Tina said, things are not only bad things, but also a good thing for remote work, because meeting could have done in a secret place before COVID era. So some, bossy type of manager do some harassment in some dark room or meeting room. But now every meeting is team meeting and everything can be recorded. So for compliance viewpoint, actually it's a better situation. We can using big data analysis or machine learning technology, so we can easily find the needle in a haystack. So I think that's a good one.
Fantastic. One thing we've seen, right? We had a big announcement today about Compliance Manager, and that kind of going to be generally available. Matthew, do you think you could talk to us a little bit about what you think this will mean for customers and really what you're most excited about with the changes that are coming about?
Sure. I think Compliance Manager is a fantastic capability, and it brings all sorts of things to bear for customers. One of the big excitements that I have for this is the addition of multiple different compliance frameworks, particularly for all sorts of global customers. So we've added specific assessments for the Asia Pacific region. We've added specific assessments in for EMEA as well. So that's a big positive change, so that you can actually then take through Compliance Manager and look at your environment, your M365 environment, through the lens of that compliance framework. That's important if that's how you need to report to both internal or external auditors or regulators. The fact that we are now coming forward with other changes, like the fact that the platform itself will automatically and dynamically give you credit for, will score your actions. So if the system can see that you have done something that would align to and satisfy one of those requirements, it will dynamically populate that in. The other big feature for this that's really important that I oftentimes have in-depth discussions with customers about is this is where we seek to make very, very clear who has what responsibility in that shared responsibility framework. Everyone conceptually understands that it's a shared responsibility between the customer and your cloud provider. This is where we make it absolutely crystal clear. These are the controls that we as Microsoft are responsible for. This is how we're executing on those controls. Here is all the evidence that you need to go address that with internal and external regulators. But just as important, we then say these are the controls that you as the customer are responsible for. So there's no gray area, there's no confusion. So you know what you need to do. And Compliance Manager is fantastic in that it will step you through. This is what you need to do. This is what we would recommend, how you can actually do that, and then gives you the place where you can put in your documentation and evidence so that from a review perspective and an assessment perspective, you've got all of that in one spot. I mean, it's really a tremendous capability, and it saves just thousands of hours on part of our customers trying to put all of this data together.
Fantastic. Yeah, no, this is a feature I'm very excited about to get with our customers. Hanamura-san,
Yes.
Can you talk to us about how customers today are attempting to meet compliance?
So compliance regulations varies from place to place. Well, especially global companies have their branch office and anywhere, any place. So they cannot, theoretically, they cannot comply everything. So that's the challenge. So by utilizing automation, these capabilities like Microsoft or some other companies is very important. And in addition to that, the regulators often see your attitude. So if you cannot explain clearly what's the process and what's going to happen, so that kind of process or organization, this is very key. And most of the customers are not the 100% from that perspective. So we are talking a lot like a chief security officer or chief risk officer, sometimes a legal department. They should collaborate each other.
Perfect. Let's talk about Andrew. Do you think you could talk to us a little bit about the difference between MCAS and auto-labeling policies? I've heard this. When would I use one versus the other? I know within our services, often I've got a lot of ways I try to go through an attack and automatically classify my data. So what should I be actually leveraging and where is the best use case for those?
Sure, happy to talk about that. So when we think about auto-labeling, there's two places in which we can do it. First is within the Security and Compliance Center itself. And these are what are known as auto-labeling policies as part of information protection. Now, auto-labeling policies in the Security and Compliance Center can only be applied to SharePoint sites, OneDrive sites, as well as Exchange. And for those three areas, SharePoint and OneDrive is all about the data at rest, and Exchange is around data in transit. So data coming into the Exchange organization and going out of the Exchange organization. The way we build the policies is we look for certain sensitive information types. When we see those information types, we then apply a particular label, which may or may not apply an encryption routine to that information, whether it's at rest or in transit in the case of Exchange. Now, we are absolutely limited to just SharePoint, OneDrive, and Exchange right now. If we compare that with MCAS, we can build policies in MCAS to apply classification labels to not only SharePoint, OneDrive, and Exchange, but any other third-party environment that MCAS can connect to. So if you have the need to automatically classify stuff sitting in, let's say, Box or AWS, etc., then MCAS becomes your obvious choice. MCAS can label around about 4,000 files a day. So if you have a SharePoint, OneDrive, or Exchange need, you really should look at the SCC's auto-labeling policies, the Security and Compliance Center's auto-labeling policies, because they can do around about 25,000 files a day. So you've got a considerably increased throughput when you're looking at the auto-labeling policies in SCC, but you have a drastically reduced amount of workloads in which they can be applied. So generally speaking, that is what we would be looking at there. What are my requirements for auto-labeling? Where do I need to do it? Quite frankly, most customers will use a combination of both. So they'll handle SharePoint, OneDrive, and Exchange in their own tenant using our auto-labeling policies, and they'll most likely go to MCAS to do all of those other disparate data sources and those third-party environments.
Fantastic. One thing I know I have heard a ton from and we actually got this question directly here from our customers is, first of all, what is Doublebyte? Maybe I could talk to Hanamaru and we can talk about what is Doublebyte, and
Doublebyte,
maybe Andrew talk about what we're doing about it. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, sorry. So Doublebyte, alphabet has only 26 characters and numeric values. So a single byte, that means 8-bit can suffice to cover a whole range of character sets. But like Japanese or Chinese characters or Arabic, there's a bunch of kinds of characters. So single byte or 8 bits are not enough. So 16 bits is a very, very important. Plus, as I said, now some legal documents, some compliant stuff can be a multinational coverage. So some vendor only provides a single byte approach, but that's not enough. So that's a double byte basically.
Awesome. And a little bit to add to this, Maka, what's Microsoft doing about this, and where are we hearing our customers asking for support of Doublebyte?
Yeah, so for Doublebyte support, like the communication in between the manager and the staff and the conversation, and plus some document search, some inside of documents, like this document is confidential, but confidential is in Japanese kimitsu. It's a Chinese character, but nobody, if tool cannot handle that the Doublebyte clearly or correctly, that company can be in trouble. So it's really essential to support.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I might add to that too. Thankfully, we have got some support for double-byte character sets across Microsoft Information Protection around data loss prevention, exact data matching, communication compliance. Right now, we've actually brought them into preview right now. So if you have tenants in Japan, China, Korea, you're likely to see that preview rolling out to your tenants right now. We're actually really interested in getting some feedback around what other double-byte languages we need to support. So Thai and Vietnamese has come up quite a bit recently. So if you do have specific needs around double-byte characters and what languages we need to support, the other one we're actually supporting in the preview is Arabic. Really, please put those in the Q&A chat and let us know so we can prioritize those for you.
Yes, some manufacturers have a branch office like Vietnam or China or some other places that is a double-byte language places. And sorry to say that, but those places using not the regular employee, but part-time job, and people there are not tended to be loyal to the company, and some internal fraud happens. So enterprise should get clear evidence to those people can be punished. So this is a really challenges that many global enterprises. So double-byte support is really necessary.
Absolutely, and it's really great to hear that Microsoft has a approach, and we are taking this very, very seriously, and something that we're going after in terms of making sure that we've got great double-byte support in all of our compliance solutions. Let's talk to Bernd. Going a little bit further out here, I hear that you actually get quite a few questions about the EU court ruling in the Shrooms 2 case and what the effects are for customers and for Microsoft. You can comment on that a bit?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, that's indeed a big topic here in Europe, and potentially also for any other international customers that have a presence in Europe or deal with European national data. Data of European nationals. The ruling was in the case where data privacy activist Max Schrems has sued Facebook in front of the EU court because he claimed that the data transfer to US providers such as Microsoft, but especially Facebook in that case, needs to be put on a new platform. The Privacy Shield was in fact declared as not enough to transfer data out of Europe to foreign states, so to say. And that also affects Microsoft contractually, because we did have data that flew out of Europe to the US based on the privacy shield. It was not for the majority of our services, but for some services. The majority was already based on the EU model clauses, and the effect of the ruling is that we now have to transfer all the data that is potentially transferred to the US based on the EU model clauses. But the ruling goes even a little bit further, and the court has said that customers need to make sure that this is not just on paper what the cloud providers are offering to their customers, that the customers indeed need to make sure the data is protected very well from those European citizens. And that's why a lot of our compliance solutions come into play, like customer logbooks, where you can potentially interfere the support process when someone is accessing data from the US in a support case, but especially also Azure Information Protection or Microsoft Information Protection in general, because you can then classify data and then define also encryption for the highest classified data, either with the Microsoft management keys or potentially even with our new double key encryption capability, so that the very sensitive data, if you are processing that in the Microsoft cloud, is not even visible to Microsoft. So I have this conversation very often these days about these so-called additional safeguards that customers should take in order to prevent data from being seen by non-European citizens, etc. So that's a big question. We do offer from the contractual side an upgrade to the contracts. That's a new amendment for customers that do transfer data to Microsoft. Technically, the whole palette of Microsoft solutions comes into play, as I said, from customer logbooks to encryption capabilities at the end.
Great. Matthew, real quick, what have you heard our customers asking about for DLP? What are the features that we're looking at that they're asking the most about for us to address?
Yeah, great question. It's fantastic to see how we as Microsoft are approaching this, and in the new announcements and the additions that we've just made kind of round our story out. So the vision from Microsoft here is the fact that you create your DLP policies in one spot, manage them in one spot, and then you leverage them across all of the different channels that you want to cover. So the big announcement for us is the endpoint DLP, in public preview. So the endpoint channel actions on an endpoint are covered. You then have the platform itself, the sort of the classic DLP that we've had in Office 365 for a while, and then the inclusion of MCAS and the ability to use that as that cloud egress channel from your Office 365 tenant to those third parties is a really significant advancement as well. So our vision here, which really has resonated with every customer that I've talked about, is we're centralizing the management and control, and then allowing you to use that across your entire estate to effectively execute on your DLP policies.
Fantastic. Well, with that, we are approaching at the very end of the hour here. I want to go through and talk about a few resources that we think everybody should definitely go through and see as a part of this. Please note, go to our Microsoft 365 compliance page, really find which resources we have that are available for you. Certainly want to point out our compliance learning paths. This is something I've been a part of. Many customers have a major difficult time with starting the journey and making sure that they have a prescriptive guidance on how to get started and really get deep into some of our compliance subjects. So that's a great resource for that. And of course, take a look at our M365 Compliance Manager. We're so excited about the announcements today and really want you to see what you'll be able to kind of get out of that product now that we have it generally available. So thank you guys very much for joining, and we'll address whatever final questions we have, and happy Ignite for everybody.